"Did you see that?" Zixax whispered, his antennae twitching in disbelief. "See what?" Blorp gurgled, his gelatinous form rippling with curiosity. "The only thing I see is my own failure reflected in this data pad." He waved a pseudopod at the glowing screen, which displayed a rather pathetic score on their recent xenobiology exam. "Not that, you overgrown pudding," Zixax hissed, mandibles clicking in excitement. "Look at the combat training field." Blorp's ice talk swiveled towards the window, peering out at the vast expanse of Xenon University's infamous combat course. The course was a hellish landscape of obstacles, traps, and simulated warfare scenarios designed to push even the hardiest species to their limits. It was a rite of passage for all students, regardless of their chosen field of study. After all, in a galaxy as unpredictable as theirs, you never knew when you might need to fend off a Zerglian brain-eater or negotiate with a Vulgarian warship. "Oh, for the love of the cosmic jelly," Blorp exclaimed, his entire body jiggling with surprise. Is that a human?" Indeed, striding confidently onto the field was a lone figure that could only be described as a human. The creature stood on two legs, had two arms, and sported a tuft of fur on top of its oddly shaped head. But what was truly baffling was the distinct lack of protective gear on its body. That's right," Zixax chittered, mandibles practically foaming with excitement. "And get this, they're not wearing any armor." "What?" Blorp's exclamation came out as a series of bubbles. "But that's suicide. Even the cracks their warriors wear at least 3 layers of neutronium weave armor." As they watched, the human approached the starting line of the course. The alien crowd that had gathered to witness this spectacle fell into a hushed silence, punctuated only by the occasional slurp of a tentacle shake or the crunch of exoskeleton chips. "Greetings, sentient beings of all shapes, sizes, and states of matter." The human's voice boomed across the field, amplified by the course's audio system. "I'm Dave, your friendly neighborhood human, and today I'll be demonstrating why Earth is classified as a, and I quote, oh shit, don't go there world." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the crowd. The human, Dave, grinned, showing off a row of alarmingly white teeth. To most species present, it looked like he was baring his fangs in preparation for battle. "Now, I know what you're thinking," Dave continued, casually stretching his limbs in a way that made several gelatinous observers wince in sympathy. "Why isn't this crazy mammal wearing any armor?" "Well, folks, where I come from, we call this a casual Friday outfit." With that, Dave stepped onto the starting platform. The course's AI sprang to life, its holographic form flickering into existence. "Warning, unarmored competitor detected. Safety protocols dictate. Override safety protocols," Dave interrupted. "Authorization code Terra Firma 01. The AI paused, its pixels swirling in confusion. "Override accepted. May the cosmic forces have mercy on your cellular structure. That's the spirit." Dave laughed, bouncing on the balls of his feet. "Now, let's get this party started." The starting klaxon blared, and Dave took off like a shot. The first obstacle was a pit filled with Mercurian fire ants, insects known for their ability to burn through most metals. Dave, however, sprinted across the writhing mass as if it were nothing more than a mildly warm carpet. "Who nothing like a bit of acupuncture to get the blood flowing," he shouted, his feet barely touching the ground. Zixax and Blorp exchanged glances, their alien features contorted in a universal expression of, "What the actual quasar?" And next came the graviton gauntlet, a series of gravity wells that could flatten most species into cosmic pancakes. Dave approached it with the enthusiasm of a child entering a bounce house. "Check this out, folks. I call this one the Earth Dance." He proceeded to hop, skip, and cartwheel through the fluctuating gravity fields, using the extreme forces to propel himself forward at incredible speeds. "It's just like our planet's gravity after a heavy lunch." By now, the crowd was in an uproar. Some were cheering, others were placing frantic bets, and a few were quietly reconsidering their life choices that had led them to a universe where such a creature existed. The acid rain chamber was next, a deluge of corrosive liquid that could dissolve most known materials. Dave didn't even break stride as he entered. "Ah, reminds me of a lovely spring day in New Jersey." he called out, steam rising from his skin as the acid evaporated on contact. Though I must say, your acid could use a bit more kick. Maybe throw in some hydrofluoric for extra zest. Blorp's gelatinous form was quivering so much he was in danger of liquefying completely. How is this possible? He burbled. Zixax, whose exoskeleton had gone pale, could only shake his head in disbelief. I think we may need to recalibrate our definition of Deathworld. Dave was now approaching the psionic minefield, a section of the course that had reduced many a telepath to a gibbering mess. As he entered the field, the air around him began to warp and twist with psychic energy. "Oh boy, this tingles," Dave exclaimed, his hair standing on end. "It's like that time I stuck a fork in an electrical outlet twice." He navigated the minefield with ease, occasionally pausing to make faces at the psionic projections that attempted to infiltrate his mind. "Sorry, fellas, but this noggin's already full of useless trivia and dad jokes. No room for cosmic horror today." The final obstacle was the dreaded quantum quagmire, a zone where the very laws of physics broke down. Most competitors emerged from this section aged backwards, inside out, or occasionally as a sentient cloud of probability. Dave cracked his knuckles as he approached. "All right, Schrödinger, let's see if this cat's got what it takes." What happened next defied description. Dave seemed to be in multiple places at once, both particle and wave, simultaneously dead and alive. And yet somehow, he was whistling the jaunty tune of "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" echoed paradoxically through the quantum foam. After what seemed like both an eternity and no time at all, Dave emerged from the other side, looking exactly as he had when he entered. Though, well, almost exactly. His hair had turned a fetching shade of purple. "Woo, that was a trip and a half," he exclaimed, jogging towards the finish line. Note to self, don't high-five your own antimatter doppelganger. Makes for awkward family reunions. As Dave crossed the finish line, the entire stadium erupted into chaos. The scoreboard, attempting to calculate his time, began smoking before displaying a series of question marks and finally settling on yes. Zixax and Blorp, along with the rest of the alien spectators, were struck dumb. The human had not only survived, but had treated the most grueling combat course in the known universe as if it were a mildly entertaining obstacle run. Dave, for his part, looked only slightly winded. He grabbed a bottle of water, or was it liquid nitrogen? No one was quite sure anymore, and took a long swig. "Well, that was fun," he said, beaming at the crowd. "So who's up for round two? This time I'll do it blindfolded." The sound of hundreds of alien jaws hitting the ground was audible, even over the continuing chaos. In the days that followed, the legend of Dave the Deathworlder spread across Xenon University like wildfire, or perhaps more accurately, like a particularly virulent strain of space flu. Whispered conversations in the cafeteria, frantic scribbling in xenobiology textbooks, and more than a few nervous breakdowns in the psychology department all centered around one burning question: what, in the name of the cosmic egg, were humans? Zixax and Blorp found themselves unwitting celebrities, bombarded with questions simply because they had been fortunate, or unfortunate, depending on your perspective, enough to witness Dave's performance firsthand. For the last time, Zixax chittered irritably at a group of wide-eyed Flobians. "I don't know how he did it. I'm an astrophysics major, not a human expert." "But you saw it," one of the Flobians burbled, its eye stalks quivering with excitement. "Did he really laugh in the face of molecular disintegration?" "I think he actually made a pun about it," Blorp interjected, his gelatinous form rippling with the memory. "Something about feeling atomically challenged." The Flobians collectively gasped, a sound not unlike a group of balloons slowly deflating. As Zixax and Blorp made their escape from their adoring and terrified fans, they spotted a familiar figure lounging on a bench in the quad. Dave was reclining as if he didn't have a care in the universe, munching on what appeared to be a sandwich that, upon closer inspection, seemed to be smoldering slightly. "Ah, my favorite dynamic duo," Dave called out, waving them over. "Zixax and Blorp, right? Pull up a seat if you've got the appropriate appendages for it. The two aliens approached cautiously, as one might approach a sleeping Zarblaxian tiger bear. Hello, Dave, Blorp gurgled nervously. We wanted to ask you something. Fire away, Dave replied cheerfully, taking another bite of his ominously glowing sandwich. Well, not literally. I know some of you can actually do that. Zixax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of both nervousness and intense curiosity. How did you do it? The combat course, I mean. It's designed to challenge the limits of every known species in the galaxy. Dave chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Blorp's pseudopods. Oh, that was nothing. You should see our Earth kindergarten playgrounds. Now, those are death traps. Seeing the blank looks on their faces, or in Blorp's case, the slight change in viscosity that indicated confusion, Dave elaborated. Look, guys, it's all about perspective. What you see as a hellish landscape of doom and destruction, we see as well Tuesday. Blorp burbled, his entire form rippling with bewilderment. Figure of speech, Dave waved dismissively. The point is, Earth isn't just a death world, it's a death world. We've got everything from microscopic organisms that can kill you from the inside out to weather patterns that can level entire cities. And don't even get me started on our fellow Earthlings. You think those Mercurian fire ants are bad? We've got Australian wildlife. Zixax and Blorp exchanged glances, silently agreeing to never, ever visit this Australia place. But the acid rain, Zixax protested, the quantum anomalies. The psionic assaults, Dave shrugged, polishing off the last of his sandwich. A small puff of smoke escaped his lips as he swallowed. Acid rain, we call that mild pollution. Quantum anomalies? That's just a typical day trying to assemble flat-pack furniture. And psionic assaults. Please, that's nothing compared to trying to navigate social media. The two aliens stared at Dave, their minds struggling to comprehend the casual way he dismissed challenges that would reduce most beings to quivering piles of protoplasm. But why, Blorp finally managed to ask. Why subject yourselves to such constant danger? Dave's expression softened slightly. Now that's the real question, isn't it? Why do we do it? Why do we climb the highest mountains, dive to the deepest oceans, or launch ourselves into the cold vacuum of space? He leaned forward, his eyes twinkling with an intensity that made both aliens lean back instinctively. We do it because it's there, because every challenge overcome makes us stronger, smarter, more adaptable. We do it because in the face of a universe that seems hellbent on exterminating us, we've decided to not just survive, but to thrive. Dave stood up, stretching in a way that made several of his joints pop alarmingly. But mostly, we do it because it's fun. Now, if you'll excuse me, I heard the chemistry department is having a mix-your-own-molecular-destabilizer workshop, and I do love a good science experiment. As Dave sauntered off, whistling a jaunty tune, Zixax and Blorp sat in stunned silence. Blorp, Zixax finally said, his antennae drooping slightly, I think we may need to reconsider our career paths. Oh. Blorp gurgled, a questioning ripple passing through his gelatinous form. Yeah, Zixax nodded solemnly. I'm thinking Terran cultural studies, with a minor in survival techniques. Blorp's entire body shuddered in agreement. I hear they're offering a new course, human idioms, and how to tell if they're about to do something terrifying. As they watched Dave disappear into the distance, probably off to casually defy the laws of physics once again, both aliens felt a mix of terror and awe. The universe had suddenly become a much larger, much more unpredictable place. And somewhere in the back of their minds, a small voice whispered a truth they were only just beginning to understand. In a galaxy full of death worlds and nightmarish creatures, perhaps the most terrifying thing of all was a smiling human saying, "Hey, watch this." The next few weeks at Xenon University were a whirlwind of chaos, excitement, and more than a few existential crises. Dave's presence on campus had sparked a revolution in the way alien species viewed not just humans, but their own capabilities and limitations. The combat training course, once viewed with dread and trepidation, now had lines of students eagerly waiting to test their mettle. Inspired by Dave's feat, many were pushing themselves beyond what they had previously thought possible. Zixax and Blorp, now unofficial human experts, by virtue of their brief encounters with Dave, found themselves at the center of this madness. No, for the last time, Zixax chittered exasperatedly to a group of Vlornian energy beings. Humans cannot actually breathe fire. At least, I'm pretty sure they can't. But we saw the human consume a Dracorian inferno pepper without even flinching. One of the Vlornians buzzed insistently. Blorp, who had been quietly oozing in the corner, spoke up. Actually, I asked Dave about that. He said it reminded him of something called Taco Tuesday back on Earth. Apparently, humans intentionally eat things that cause them pain for fun. The Vlornians' energy patterns fluctuated wildly in shock, and one of them actually fizzled out temporarily. As the two unlikely ambassadors of human weirdness continued to field questions, a commotion near the university's main plaza caught their attention. A crowd was gathering, their chittering, buzzing, and gurgling reaching a fevered pitch. "Oh no," Blorp bubbled nervously. "What's he done now?" They made their way to the plaza, pushing through a bizarre assortment of tentacles, pincers, and inaudible. At the center of the commotion stood Dave, grinning from ear to ear next to what appeared to be a large metallic contraption. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted non-binary entities," Dave's voice boomed across the plaza. "Gather round for the unveiling of Earth's latest contribution to intergalactic culture." Zixax and Blorp exchanged worried glances. The last time Dave had introduced an Earth cultural artifact, half the biology department had ended up in quarantine after an incident involving something called a sourdough starter. "Behold," Dave continued, dramatically whisking a cover off the contraption, the Terran Amusement Simulator 3000, or as we like to call it back home, a roller coaster. The assembled aliens stared in confusion at the twisted metal tracks that looped, corkscrewed, and defied several laws of physics. Dave," Zixax ventured cautiously, "what exactly does this device do?" Dave's grin, if possible, grew even wider. "Why, my chitinous friend, it simulates one of humanity's favorite pastimes, voluntarily subjecting ourselves to extreme G-forces, rapid elevation changes, and the ever-present threat of mechanical failure." A collective gasp rose from the crowd, followed by confused murmuring. "But why?" asked a trembling Gloopian, its eyes rotating in distress. "For fun, of course," Dave laughed. "Now, who wants to be the first to try it out?" To everyone's surprise, a tentacle shot up from the back of the crowd. "I volunteer," came a warbling voice. The crowd parted to reveal Professor Zillith, the head of the xenobiology department. The venerable octopodian slithered forward, all 8 of her tentacles wiggling with excitement. "Professor," Blorp exclaimed, his gelatinous form jiggling in shock, "are you sure about this?" "My dear Blorp," Professor Zillith thrilled, her color-changing skin flickering through shades of excitement, "I've spent my entire career studying the most dangerous life forms in the galaxy. It's high time I experienced some of that danger firsthand." Dave helped the enthusiastic professor into the roller coaster car, securing her with a safety harness that looked woefully inadequate for the impending chaos. "Ready, Professor?" Dave asked, his hand hovering over a large red button. "Ready as I'll ever be, you magnificent madman," Professor Zillith warbled, her tentacles gripping the safety bar. Dave slammed the button, and with a whoosh of compressed air, the car shot off like a photon torpedo with a grudge. What followed was a symphony of screams, laughs, and sounds that defied classification in any known language. Professor Zylith's tentacles whipped in the wind as the car looped, twisted, and at one point seemed to briefly exit reality itself. Zixax's mandibles hung open in shock. Is this really how humans entertain themselves? Blorp, who had reflexively shifted into a more aerodynamic shape just from watching, burbled nervously, "Apparently so. And here I thought that reality TV was the height of human insanity." After what seemed like an eternity compressed into a few minutes, the car screeched to a halt. Professor Zylith sat motionless, her color cycling rapidly through the entire visible spectrum, and possibly a few beyond. "Professor," Dave asked, a note of concern in his voice. "Are you all right?" Slowly, Professor Xylith turned to face the crowd. Her eyes, all 12 of them, were wide with an emotion that was hard to place. Then, suddenly, she threw her tentacles in the air and let out a joyous trill. "By the cosmic egg, that was amazing," she shouted. "Quick, someone fetch my research assistant. We simply must study the psychological effects of these roller coasters immediately." As if a dam had broken, the crowd surged forward, a cacophony of voices, all clamoring to be next. Dave stood back, watching the chaos unfold with a satisfied smile. "And that, my friends," he said to no one in particular, "is how you start a cultural revolution." Zixax and Blorp found themselves swept up in the excitement, despite their initial reservations. "You know," Zixax chittered thoughtfully, "perhaps we've been looking at humans all wrong." Blorp gurgled in agreement. "Indeed, we've been so focused on their ability to survive that we've overlooked their capacity to thrive." As they watched aliens of all shapes and sizes line up for a ride that would have been considered a method of torture on most planets, a thought occurred to them both simultaneously. In a universe full of threats and challenges, maybe the humans had the right idea. Why just survive when you can turn adversity into adventure? The sounds of screams, both terrified and elated, filled the air as the roller coaster launched another car full of thrill-seeking academics. Zixax and Blorp exchanged glances, then nodded in silent agreement. They joined the queue, ready to experience a taste of humanity's unique brand of madness. After all, in a galaxy where a single human could make a combat course look like a walk in the park, perhaps the real adventure was in learning to see the universe through their eyes. As they strapped themselves in, Dave gave them a thumbs up. "Remember," he shouted over the whir of the machine, "keep your appendages inside the ride at all times, and if you feel like you're about to die, that means you're doing it right." With a whoop and a holler, the car shot off, carrying its alien passengers into a new understanding of what it meant to be alive in this vast, terrifying, and wonderfully absurd universe. And somewhere in the great cosmic tapestry, the concept of fun gained a new, slightly unhinged definition, courtesy of humanity's finest export. Controlled chaos with a smile. Epilogue. In the months that followed, Xenon University underwent a transformation that rippled across the galaxy. The Dave Effect, as it came to be known, sparked a renaissance of interdisciplinary studies and cross-species cooperation. The combat training course was ... now featuring an Earthling difficulty setting that quickly became the gold standard for elite warriors across the galaxy. Rumors spread of crackster berserkers weeping in frustration and void assassins questioning their life choices. Professor Xylith's research into Terran recreational extreme experiences became the most cited paper in the history of xenobiology. Amusement parks began popping up on planets where previously the concept of fun had been limited to watching paint dry, which admittedly could be quite exciting on certain gas giants. Zixax and Blorp, once unremarkable students, found themselves at the forefront of a new academic field, human integration studies. Their seminar on surviving humans became mandatory for all diplomats and first contact specialists. As for Dave, he continued to be a whirlwind of chaotic ... the campus. From introducing the concept of pranks, resulting in an incident involving the teleportation of the entire administration building into low orbit, to starting an interspecies rock band, their first album, Quantum Harmonies and Eldritch Rhythms, topped the charts for 17 cycles. He remained a constant source of bewilderment and inspiration, but perhaps the most profound change was in the way the various species of the galaxy viewed themselves and their place in the universe. The human capacity for turning adversity into opportunity, danger into excitement, and the terrifying into the terrifically fun had awakened something in even the most stoic of races. In the grand dance of cosmic civilizations, humanity had waltzed in, stepped on everyone's toes, spilled drinks on ancient traditions, and somehow started a party that no one wanted to end. And as stars buzzed, planets hummed, and the great tapestry of spacetime rippled with laughter, the universe itself seemed to smile. For in the face of entropy, supernovas, and the occasional eldritch abomination, what better response could there be than to strap in, throw your hands or tentacles or pseudopods in the air, and enjoy the ride? After all, in a universe where a human could make a death course look like a stroll in the park, anything was possible. And that, perhaps, was the greatest adventure of all.